Here is Jagmeet Singh, and I'm not going to play this again. Even maybe I'll play this again. It's ridiculous. But I want to highlight that I didn't read the tweet. And he said something in the tweet that I thought was so crazy as well. So here's Jagmeet Singh's tweet from yesterday that was accompanied by the video. Yesterday, I just played the video. Today, here's the tweet. Students like Greg and Mitch shouldn't have to compete with lawyers or bankers to pay over $2,000 a month for a one-bedroom apartment. I think that it's interesting. When I was a student, I don't think that there was a lawyer or a banker who was interested in the places that I was interested in. And I think that that's interesting, the positioning that Jagmeet Singh is putting here, that you're competing with lawyers and bankers. You're not competing with lawyers and bankers most of the time. And I mean, like, now the housing market's tightening up. And maybe if you're at the University of Guelph, for example, and you have to go to off-campus housing, which a lot of people do because there's not enough on-campus housing to house everybody, then maybe you're competing with lawyers or doctors or whoever, but you could be competing with other students. You could be competing with, the person who works at a tool and die shop, or a person who works at Linamar or something like that. So I think, again, the positioning on this was really strange, especially when you're talking about students. He positions these students as graduate students who are working and so would have an income. But even like graduate students that I knew, they weren't in nice apartments. It wasn't like you would walk in and think, "Ooh, are you a partner in a law firm?" From my limited experience with law firms, don't they have things like apartments as perks if you're a high performing lawyer, right? I mean, I'm sure there's law firms where you get a job and like you just get a desk, right? Like, welcome to your desk. But there are places, I'm sure, that give you a nice little house or condo or something like that on Queen Street or wherever there's condos in Toronto. So I don't know. The whole positioning on this just felt weird. The tweet continues. Here's a solution. Let's build more homes students can afford, or lawyers or doctors or bankers. Lawyers or bankers. Students can afford by splitting the cost between the federal, provincial, and post-secondary institutions. Splitting the cost. That's not how we do housing, usually, splitting the cost between post-secondary institutions and government. Why am I subsidizing student housing when the institution should be rolling in cash? I mean, do you know how much those foreign students pay? Jeepers creepers. Greg points out the Conservatives and the NDP are hell-bent on government spending to build homes. Since when was that even a thing, or ever a thing? Yes, let's bring in 1 million immigrants a year and then spend tax dollars to house them. It's insane. It doesn't make any sense, because that's exactly what's happening. Why are we doing that? If we have an economy, the economy is supposed to serve the Canadian public, right? Like you and me, the people who live here, the people who need to go to the grocery store, the people who need to get a driver's license or, get services from the province, use the healthcare system, use the education system, the people who are on the ground here. So the government has a responsibility to focus on Canadians here. And if the government, create a situation through prioritizing one set of KPIs, which are key indicator KPI. Oh man. Hold on. I was going to say project. It's performance. And I had to look that up. But anyway, key performance indicators. So if you've got a key performance indicator of we want to grow the economy by X number, and we believe that growing the economy by X number would be accomplished by increasing the population by 1 million, 2 million, whatever it is. So that's one KPI. But then they're completely ignoring what that does to the economy, the other side of it, the shortage of homes, the resulting supply and demand driving up of prices and so on and so forth. They ignore that to focus on the first one. And if you do that, then you could sell it and say, we're helping Canadians by growing the economy and making sure that Canadians have enough money, blah, 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 blah. But fundamentally, what's happening is we are bringing in all of these people and there isn't anywhere for them to live. And taxpayers are now being saddled with the bill to house them. And on its face, it doesn't make sense, right? And the government justifies it through narrowly focusing on this one set of outcomes and says, this is the goal. We're all in this together, right? Like, get there because it's going to make the economy really great. But right now, the economy is not great. Right now, the result is bad and results in an economy that doesn't work for Canadians, right? Jeepers creepers. It's ridiculous. And so I don't think we should be focusing on building houses, but everybody's saying that building houses is the way out. Here is Countersignal. This is Kian's outfit, and he's got a classified document. This was released yesterday. Document implicates Trudeau in housing crisis, blames immigration policy for unaffordability. Right. So here it is. The documents show supply shortage is a key factor. The memo informed Trudeau that Canada housing supply shortage is a key factor behind the affordability crisis, and the country's home building pace is woefully short of filling the gap by 2030. There is broad agreement among experts that home building has been insufficient in comparison with housing demand in recent years, particularly with the increase in immigration since 2015, referring to the year Trudeau took office. 5 months after digesting this report, Trudeau released his 2023 to 2025 immigration targets, which not only disregarded the dire warning given to him and instead accelerated the rate of immigration. The Trudeau Liberals are on track to pack in 465,000 new permanent residents in 2023, 485,000 in 24, and 500,000, 500,000 in 2025. And that's not including temporary students. That's not including temporary foreign workers. That's not including a bunch of different streams. The total number for each year is more than 1 million people coming here. Really? Yeah, it's pretty wild. Carrying on with the article, the memo further stated that Trudeau's home building efforts were dramatically underserving Canada's needs, while national home building did ramp up slightly in 2021, building 223,000 new units. The actual annual pace needed is 665,000 per year, which would be significantly more ambitious than what the Trudeau government is banking on in budget 2022. Even if the Trudeau government had unlimited money to bank on building 1 million houses, we're going to build every single person who comes here their own house, and we're going to build it the day they get here, right? We're going to print it, 3D print it, whatever you want to do, right? Well, if they 3D print it, I kind of derailed myself, because if they 3D printed it, then the whole calculation on everything would be different. But fundamentally, if you build a house the way they're building houses now, they wouldn't have the materials, they wouldn't have the people, they wouldn't have the ability, because that's 3 times what we're building now. And I said doubling it would be difficult, right? But 3 times would be difficult. Now, if they brought in a new way to build houses, like we're going to build nothing but tiny homes, right? Or we're going to 3D build I've seen cardboard houses being 3D printed, and I thought, well, that's pretty crazy. But I don't think I would believe that you could 3D print 1 million houses in a year. But, maybe. But then where would you get the material? Would you cut down all the trees to provide the cardboard necessary to feed the 3D printer to house the new Canadians? Is that where we want to go, right? So absent a calculation for 3D printed houses, apologies for derailing myself. If you're building houses in the traditional way, tripling it is not really a plan. Okay, in order to serve the population that we're bringing in, we need to actually build more than 500,000 houses, which is more than double what we're building now. Right? So who's going to tell the boss the bad news? But the boss just threw it out anyway, completely ignored it. But even if we wanted to fund it, it wouldn't be possible. We would have the money, maybe we'd have the money, but the practical, actual solution of getting the house built, not happening. Period. Back to the article. The secret document illustrates the Trudeau government's unwillingness to listen to reason and act in the best interest of the country. CMHC projects that the housing stock will grow by approximately 2.3 million between 2021 and 2030. And when it incorporates economic factors alongside demographic factors, it projects that an additional 3.5 million additional housing units are needed beyond current projections to restore affordability. With the current government's strategic plan, that number will not be met. Right? So there is a solution. The solution is to bring down the number of people coming in every year. If you bring in 1 million people a year between now and 2030, let's say we keep the same pace of bringing immigrants here that has happened in 2023 between now and 2030. And that would be terrible. I think that would be not very good for Canada. But if we did, then we would have 7 million more people and 2.3 million more houses. That's not close. That's not close to being a solution to the problem. And that's a problem. Here's the Globe and Mail, and they say, the flow of international students is worsening the housing crisis. This was published yesterday. It says, students from all around the world have enriched the campus experience at post-secondary universities and colleges across Canada. Seriously, that's the first sentence. They're enriching the campuses. But the whole thing is, this is a problem. right? So thank you for enriching the campuses. Go home now, please. The Canadian Bureau for International Education has said that they also offer. The Canadian Bureau of International Education has said that they also offer Canada first dibs on the brightest future workers in the world, and allow our relatively small country a soft power advantage to gain foreign policy objectives. So schools offering international student slots are actually soft power foreign policy objective action. Well, people who are supposed to make that happen. Really? I think that's a conflict of interest. If you're an education, like a place of upper education or post-secondary education, then you should focus on that. If you're a spy agency hell-bent on foreign policy objectives, focus on that. Right? That's a little weird. Anyway, but more practically, says the article, they have kept many Canadian post-secondary institutions afloat. These are the international students, with each student paying tuition that ranges from 3 times to 10 times that paid by their Canadian classmates. Besides education, many international students arrive with the intention of working, ending up in low-paying retail or fast food jobs that keeps them grinding away at minimum wage for hours in order to afford the high cost of housing in cities such as Vancouver and Toronto. I don't mind working. Like, I worked when I went to college, and it was fine. I probably should have been smarter about how I was working, but you miss opportunities in the time, right? You don't see the forest from the trees. But fundamentally, I think that working a fast food or a retail job while you're going to school often gives you opportunities that not working doesn't offer. Like, you often get opportunities to be like a manager or something like that. Foot in the door, you might meet somebody. You might meet somebody who could leverage your career, et cetera, et cetera. So there's nothing wrong with working. And saying like, oh no, those poor people who have to work low wage jobs. I mean, it's not really low wage. It's $15 an hour, right? Like, that's not really low wage, right? It's quite high, actually. And I don't think that higher minimum wage helps, but that's a whole other thing. But they're the victims thing is just bothersome. Back to this. They have to live somewhere, the students do. As post-secondary reporter Joe Friesen writes today, the presence of more than 800,000 foreign students in Canada in 2022 has exacerbated a housing crisis. That has left Canada's Housing Minister Sean Fraser in a delicate position, suggesting a federal government cap on study permits may be needed to alleviate the pressure, while Prime Minister Trudeau later said international students were the last group to be blamed for a multifaceted crisis that has been brewing for many years. Yeah, that was kind of a public rebuke of Fraser, right? The problem will not be an easy one to fix. It should be an easy one to fix. In a feature story today, post-secondary reporter Joe Friesen, uncovered some remarkable statistics about colleges in Ontario, finding that at least 8 of Ontario's 24 publicly funded colleges, job-focused institutions that primarily offer 1- and 2-year programs, are majority international students. Sarnia's Lambdom College, for instance, was 82% international students in 2021-22, according to full-time student stats from the provincial government. Statistics from British Columbia and Alberta governments point to a similar picture of international student growth, but also show a decline, in some cases a dramatic one, in the number of domestic students enrolled. That's not surprising either. A lot of parents now, I mean, are you going to send your kids to post-secondary school to be indoctrinated by the woke, crazy woke people? Like, yeah, no, I don't think so. And so it's an interesting thing, because the people who are coming here for post-secondary education are more interested in the citizenship, I've been told, than the post-secondary education, right? They can take that or leave that. And there was a news article about a student who was enrolled in a college in Kitchener, I think it was Conestoga College, and they were living under a bridge in Toronto. So, right? And there are concerns that these private colleges that this was referring to, 24 of Ontario's publicly funded colleges, that some of them were mostly international students, and who knows if they're actually showing up or if it's just an immigration scam, for lack of a better word, right? And who knows? I don't know the answer to that. Here's a 5-minute long video from Pierre Poilievre. He's talking about building houses. Here you go.
You can't start a family or a life while you're living in a 400 square foot apartment or trapped in your parents' basements, despite the fact that you did everything right. You graduated, you got a job, you work hard. You can't afford a home. This is obviously because housing costs have doubled under Justin Trudeau. Now, 9 in 10 young people believe they'll never be able to afford a home. This is not normal. This is not how Canada has always been. But it isn't entirely unprecedented. It happened only once before, back in the early 1980s, under the previous Trudeau, when interest rates went skyrocketing, forcing families like mine to actually leave their homes and find somewhere else to live. But in the years that followed, a solution came to those families. A solution that is as obvious as the day is long. We built more homes. Homes like this one, built in 1988. In that year, Canada built about 220,000 homes. Our population was a lot smaller back then, so we didn't need to build as much. But here's a startling fact. Canada only built about 220,000 homes last year. An even more incredible fact, we were building more houses per year 50 years ago than we are right now. This is a uniquely Canadian problem.
He goes on to talk about how much land we have, and that we have more land than anyone else in the G7, and the most expensive real estate, most expensive least house production. So it's an interesting video. It's 5 minutes long. I showed you more than I intended to, but he makes a couple of good points. It's all bad. It's bureaucracy, bad policy. That's what this is. That's why this is happening. And they're ignoring the problems to focus on KPIs, key performance indicators, that maybe you and I won't ever see the result. They're going for this goal that we're supposed to feel pain for now to make that happen. And realistically, I don't even think that the goal will happen, or the economic goal will happen. They'll probably get the idea is get Canada to 100 million people, and then your economy really starts moving. But at that point in time, the country will be very different than it is now, even as different now as the country is from 2015, right? Like, it is very different than it was in 2015. They want to do the same thing in the States. Here's Douglas, and he says the U.S. has about 1 million foreign students in 2023. Canada has about the same number, if not more, due to undercounting, according to the CIBC. Canada's population is 1/10 of the United States. And so it's wild when you consider, and they're doing this in specific states in the United States. They're doing this in specific counties to wield political power. They're not doing it on such a grand scale, but it seems like Canada is a testing ground for this plan, and it seems to go undetected for a long period of time, and they are able to get away with it until something like this housing crisis crops up. Without the housing crisis, nobody would have noticed the foreign student thing. Really. And it would have gone undetected, and people would have thought, things are looking different around this school campus and around this Walmart, around these retail stores, and so on and so forth. And then all of a sudden, you've got 6 million different foreign students in a small population town. That makes a difference, right? Huge difference. Places like there are places under 50,000 people, where that number of people. I've been in places in Newfoundland where there's a huge population compared to the size of the town, and that really changes things, right? It changes things, and what's happening is not by accident. Hello, everyone. Thanks very much for watching. This is just a short version of a longer show. If you'd like to get the whole show, you can go over to CanadaPoly.com and sign up for a subscription. Just look in the drop-down tab for Shop and Donate and look for subscriptions, and you'll get immediate access to the full show. Love to see you. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.